All right, hello. All right, so my topic is on managing corporate social responsibility, and I'm going to talk about why it's important, what are the challenges, and what are great companies doing. So I'm going to start on the history. So this is a timeline of all the events of corporate social responsibility and all the advancements. I'm only going to talk about a couple of these. So in 1953, Howard Bowen was the father of corporate social responsibility. He was the first one to come up with a definition of corporate social responsibility. I'm just going to call it CSR because I keep on messing it up. Anyway, so he defined CSR as the obligations of businessmen to pursue those policies, to make those decisions, or to follow those lines of action which are desirable in terms of the objectives and values of our society. And then in the 1960s, anti-war protests and civil rights movements defined that decade. Keith Davis made an argument that if companies ignored protests, especially against those of their own company, then it would hurt their profits in the long run. And then later in 1963, McGuire proposed that firms should take an interest in politics, the social welfare of the community, and the education and happiness of employees. Clarence Walton added on to McGuire's proposal by including the importance of relationships between the corporations and society. And then this was the start of an era where consumers expected more from businesses than just maximizing profits. They expected companies to take in mind the welfare of society as well. So in the 1970s, when the 1970s came around, consumers had low confidence in businesses, and this had a lot to do with an oil spill in 1969, which actually led to the first Earth Day in 1970. So on the first Earth Day in 1970, 20 million people across the U.S. protested and demanded a fight against pollution. This led to the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and the Occupational Safety and Health Organization. And with these agencies came a lot of legislation that covered environmental, public safety, and labor rights that companies had to abide to. And with the increasing popularity of CSR, there came a lot of confusion about what the actual definition was. And that was until Dr. Archie B. Carroll redefined corporate social responsibility as the social responsibility of business encompasses the economic, legal, ethical, and discretionary expectations that society has of organizations at a given point in time. So in the 1980s, the government decided that it was best to reduce their role on regulating corporate behavior. So this was the first time that companies really had to decide if they wanted to continue to be socially responsible. According to Thomas Jones, CSR had become a decision-making process. So this was the transition from CSR from being a concept to becoming a strategy. And then in 1991, Carroll created the Pyramid of Corporate Social Responsibility, which represented the four main responsibilities of companies still used today. These four responsibilities are economic, legal, ethical, and philanthropic. Another major contribution came in 1994. John Elkington created the concept of the triple bottom line. In the 2000s, Craig Smith came up with a new definition that is closest to the definition we have now, and that definition is corporate social responsibility refers to the obligations of the firm to its stakeholders, which are people affected by corporate policies and practices. These obligations go beyond legal requirements and the firm's duties to its shareholders. Fulfillment of these obligations is intended to minimize any harm and maximize the long-run beneficial impact of the firm on society. And then in 2006, Porter and Kramer presented the idea that with the combination of competitive advantage and social responsibility, companies can create a shared value. And then in 2015, the Paris Agreement was adopted, which is the adoption of 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which represent a shared vision of humanity and the social contract between the world's leaders and the people. So next, I'm going on to the importance of corporate social responsibility. So there's many company benefits. These include improved financial performance, lower operating cost, enhanced brand image and reputation, increased sales and customer loyalty, greater productivity and quality, more ability to attain and retain employees, reduced regulatory oversight, access to capital, workforce diversity, and product safety, and decreased liability. And then company benefits include charitable contributions, employee volunteer programs, and corporate involvement in community education, employment, and homelessness programs. And then some environmental benefits are a greater use of recyclable material, which has better product durability and functionality. And then there's a greater use of renewable resources, and then the integration of environmental management tools and business plans, including life cycle assessment, costing, environmental management standards, and eco-labeling also help benefit the environment. And then a couple statistics I found. 71% of the U.S. millennials hope companies will take the lead on social issues they find important. 50% of millennials say that they would take a pay cut in order to work for companies that match their ethics and values. 87% of Americans will purchase a product because that company advocated for a social issue that they also believe in. 40% of consumers go out of their way to seek companies who are socially responsible. So as you can see, these numbers are pretty high, and that just goes to show how the increase of expectations that consumers have on companies to be more socially responsible. So some risks of not implementing CSR are lack of competitive advantage, lack of employee motivation, potential loss of products, harder to gain customer loyalty, not maximizing the profit market, and it's harder to obtain a good company image. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about the challenges managers face when trying to implement corporate social responsibility. So the first challenge is how to measure CSR. An example would be if a company has increasing profits, who's to say that it has anything to do with corporate social responsibility? With that being said, managers have to find creative ways to measure the effectiveness of corporate social responsibility. The second challenge is how managers are going to pinpoint exactly who the company and its managers are responsible for. It can be hard for managers to implement a corporate social responsibility program because there are so many different stakeholders and all of them have different views, and it'll be hard to make everyone happy. The next challenge is pressure from stakeholders, especially with the increase in demand of companies being eco-friendly and socially responsible. Managers might feel pressured to look green, and which would lead to greenwashing. Greenwashing is when a company tries to portray itself as more environmentally minded than they truly are. And the last challenge is transitioning from traditional businesses to a CSR mindset. Alright, so how will managers address these challenges? For starters, when it comes to figuring out who managers are responsible to, stakeholder mapping can be super useful. It provides a systematic way to identify the expectations, needs, importance, and relative power of various stakeholders. Another way of saying that is it's a way to identify all the company stakeholders and group them into who they need to keep most satisfied. And then using the philosophy of sustainability is important because managers are able to weave environmental and social concerns into every strategic decision so that financial goals are achieved in a way that is socially and environmentally responsible. In order to solve the problem of the difficulty of measuring CSR, managers can integrate the triple bottom line. And the triple bottom line measures a company's social performance, environmental performance, and its financial performance. This is also referred to the 3 Ps, which are people, planet, and profit. Within the people measurement, managers look at diversity, labor practices, treatment of employees, relationships with suppliers, and contributions to the public. Within the planet aspect, managers measure how environmentally friendly and sustainable the company is. And then finally, the profit aspect measures how profitable the company is. And then ethical leadership is another important aspect for managers to implement. It is important for the employees to buy in on the concepts and procedures involved in corporate social management. If managers are good role models of ethics, then they'll have a strong influence on the ethical climate of the company, and therefore employees will also embody that ethical behavior. And then once there's an ethical leadership, managers can then implement code of ethics, committee of ethics, outlines for ethics, ethical training, and support for whistleblowers. And then if a company and its managers are looking to prioritize corporate social responsibility over profits, then becoming a certified benefit corporation is probably the best way to go. That's because B corporations have legal protections for managers, which gives them the right to choose to prioritize a social, moral, or environmental goal over financial goals without the risk of being sued by the shareholders. Alright, so next I'm going to be talking about 3 companies and how they are implementing corporate social responsibility into their strategic plans. So first up is Tom's. They are a shoe company and they're also a benefit corporation. They're best known for their 1-for-1 program, and this is a program where for every pair of shoe purchased, a pair of brand new shoes is given to those in need. And then they've expanded to provide the gift of sight, water, safe birth, and kindness through those 1-for-1 deals. And then Tom's would not be where they are today if their employees did not commit to the mission and social responsibilities that managers have put into place. So in order to help employees transition from a traditional business mindset to a CSR mindset, managers have supplied employees with the Employee Code of Conduct, and in 2017, managers introduced an internal code of conduct which helps employees guide through large and small choices in their daily life. And then in 2019, this was expanded to outside factors such as environmental responsibilities. And then in 2018, Tom's also implemented an external whistleblower system where employees can call if they believe that unethical actions are being displayed. And managers thought it would be best to use an external party for this system so that whistleblowers felt more comfortable to report unethical behaviors. And then in 2019, managers renewed their Employee Code of Conduct and added a new e-learning platform. And this platform enables employees to have mandatory training and education for all new employees, as well as a mandatory training package employees have to complete each year. And then these trainings just help employees stay aware of the security, safety, and ethical standards and norms at Tom's. So the next company is Patagonia. They are a clothing and outdoor brand, and they are also a benefit corporation. Unlike many companies, Patagonia recognizes that apparel workers are among the lowest paid employees around the globe. In order to fix this situation, Patagonia has created a series of socially responsible programs. These include the Fair Trade Program, the Fair Labor Association Program, Regenerative Organic Certification Program, and the Migrant Worker Program. Through these programs, they help give extra money to workers in factories, audit members of the supply chain, and identify where managers need to improve. They switch from fossil fuel intensive farming to organic and natural practices, and they eliminate the fees for migrant worker programs. And then finally, the Walt Disney Company is known for the entertainment, media networks, and theme parks they own. The Walt Disney Company created a board of directors, and corporate social responsibility is overseen by the Chief Financial Officer, who is in close coordination with the Chief Executive Officer, Chief Human Resources Officer, and the General Counsel. And then the Board of Directors organizes councils for key issues. For example, the Environmental Governance Council, and this council oversees the integration of environmental considerations in their business operations and strategies. And then another way managers at the Walt Disney Company have been able to get employees to engage in social responsibility is through their Disney Volunteers program. And this program started in 1983, and 11 million volunteer hours have been put in by employees and cast members. And then to take it a step further, Disney includes a volunteers grant program where employees can turn their volunteer hours into a financial contribution to a charity or cause of their choice. And this helps managers because they're more likely able to get employees to adapt to a CSR mindset because employees have this hands-on opportunity with the volunteer program. All right, then finally, the summary and recommendations. So I came up with 2 recommendations for companies who are trying to implement CSR into their strategic plans. And the first one I came up with is to be transparent with stakeholders and people who are interested in your company. When I was researching, I had some difficulty finding CSR reports. So anybody who's interested in establishing CSR in their company should be super transparent and have information readily available for anybody who is interested in looking at it. And then my second recommendation is to set aside a plan to take advantage of social responsibility in a time of crisis and need. So right now we're in a pandemic, and I was thinking about how companies who can really rise up in this time of need and help people in need, and how that increases their company image. So I said, if companies set aside a plan, and it doesn't have to be for a pandemic because obviously those don't come around too often, but even for a natural disaster like the hurricanes or the fires in Australia, if companies who are environmentally friendly and say that they are helping issues with the environment, then they should put aside a plan to help people in need when there are environmental issues going around. And then for the summary, since 1953, corporate social responsibility has gone from a definition to a concept to a strategy to a shared value approach being implemented today. Implementation of corporate social responsibility has not only benefits for the company, but also for the community and the environment. There are a couple of challenges managers may face when trying to incorporate social responsibility, but with stakeholder mapping, the triple bottom line, and clear ethical guidelines, these challenges can become less severe. And then Tom's, Patagonia, and the Walt Disney Company are 3 examples of companies who are successfully implementing corporate social responsibility today. And that is it. Thank you so much.